It's midnight, and our guide and driver arrived at the Novotel hotel to pick us up for our private expedition to see the Mount Bromo sunrise, the sea of sand, and to climb to the lip of an active volcano. We arranged the trip through Viator, who charged us 2,605,099 Indonesian rupiah. While this seems expensive, the fee included a full-time English-speaking guide, a private SUV and driver to take us back and forth between our hotel in Surabaya and the Bromo Tengger Semeru National Park volcano area, a private jeep with a different driver to take us around the national park area including the Sea of Sand, horse transportation to and from the foot of the volcano, and breakfast before returning to the hotel in Surabaya. Our guide, Zaidan Mardiansah, or Dan for short, was very helpful and accommodating. Here is his intro, shot later during the trip.
Hi, my name is Dan. I'm your tour guide for Bromo. Hello!
At first, we drove along a highway for about 45 minutes. Then we turned off onto a dark, narrow and winding road for about an hour. We stopped at a parking lot where we left the SUV and met our Jeep and driver. We climbed aboard the Jeep and wound our way along the steep and bumpy mountain roads, across part of the Sea of Sand, up more steep and winding roads, until we reached a chaotic parking area around 4 in the morning. Here, vendors were selling various coffee and hot food offerings, along with renters providing the unprepared with clothing to combat the frigid pre-dawn conditions. I came prepared with long pants, a warm jacket, and a toque, but was still shivering. We sat on wooden benches in a rustic coffee shop and sipped some sludgy coffee, but at least it was hot. After about a half-hour rest, we hiked up the muddy trail to the viewpoint in total darkness. When we arrived at the top, we joined a throng of tourists in the pitch dark, waiting for the sunrise. With nothing to see except the lights of nearby villages and the plethora of stars above. The sunrise serenity was shattered by a group of noisy tourists playing loud Chinese pop music on a Bluetooth speaker. Fortunately, they stopped after 10 minutes or so. Once the first hint of sunrise appeared on the horizon, the cameras came out. I made a time-lapse of the sunrise with mixed results. Dan took a short video of me with my camera rig. The resulting video, edited from 3 cameras, shows the diaphanous clouds as they unveiled the rising sun, displaying many shades of red, pink, orange, and vermilion. The sudden jerks in the image are caused by people bumping into my monopod. Neo also captured some amazing images. After the sun had risen, many tourists fled the hilltop where we were standing. I decided to fly my drone, which proved difficult due to the milling crowd of tourists and the strong gusts of wind which made flying dangerous, so it was a short flight. But it captured the iconic image of the trip. While Dan captured a shot of me flying the drone. We made our way to the front of the viewing area to take some tourist photos with Dan the guide. I captured some dramatic shots with smoke billowing from the crater of Mount Bromo. We began the walk down the mountain and discovered some beautiful viewpoints we did not see in the darkness on the way up. We got back to the rest area where our Jeep was parked and faced the chaos and traffic jams, and took some pictures of the monkeys with their young. Before we got on the road to visit the Sea of Sand. We followed the steep, winding road downhill, catching occasional glimpses of the Sea of Sand. We parked the Jeep in an unoccupied spot, and Dan explained about the ancient volcano, pointing out the remains of the crater walls. If you take a look at the topographic map of the area where Mount Bromo and its neighboring volcano cones are located, they are inside the caldera of a gigantic ancient volcano. The ash and sand from ancient eruptions have filled the crater over the centuries to form the large flat plain known as the Sea of Sand, where the remaining walls of the ancient volcano are clearly visible, giving the area a rugged beauty.
This Bromo, as you can see, really beautiful, isn't it? And nice, like a heaven.
After posing for pictures, we headed over to the Jeep parking area where the horses awaited us. The horses were smaller than those I have ridden on before. Thus, I was hanging on with white knuckles as the horse swayed unsteadily across the sea of sand. To the staging area below the cone of Mount Bromo, where we had a magnificent view of the extinct Gunung Batok volcano. There, we caught our first glimpse of the steep stairs up to the lip of the crater. The stairs were rather narrow and single file up and down. Fortunately, there were rest areas along the way where one could catch one's breath while allowing the nimbler younger tourists to pass. Once I reached the top of the stairs, I stepped onto the narrow, tourist-filled lip of the volcano to stare into the gigantic crater of an active volcano. The air was filled with the stench of sulphur, while the volcano emitted a distant, deep rumbling sound. It was an awesome spectacle, and a far more intense experience than the first time I stood on the lip of a volcano as a teen at Mount Vesuvius in Italy. We took some pictures at the lip of the crater. And a picture of myself with Dan using the extinct Gunung Batok as the background. There was an amazing panoramic view of the walls of the ancient caldera and the sea of sand from the lip of the crater. After another quick look down the throat of the monster, we headed single file back down the stairs. Admiring the view on the way, especially the frozen-in-time lava flows which formed rills on the side of the volcanoes. We reached the staging area where there were many tourists milling about trying to find their horses.
Yeah.
Dan led us to our horses, we saddled up and headed back through the gully and across the sea of sand to the Jeep parking area where we met up with our driver. Then we headed back towards Surabaya, up the side of the ancient volcano, and through the small town of Wonkitri. Where we stopped at a restaurant in the shadow of the ancient volcano walls for our Indonesian brunch of noodles and fried egg with salad. We climbed back into the car, exhausted, to return to Surabaya. This time with daylight, so we could see the road and the scenery. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share.